Hey everybody, welcome back. Psychedelic here. Got a new video lined up for you today. We got a new theme on the horizon. Mr. Seeking a Thread, Dom. He's kind of introduced this theme called the Acid Archive Diaries. Of course, that piques my interest right there. Where you basically dive into one specific record from the Acid Archives book, give your little insight, give a little in-depth review, what you think of it, and so on. And I chose a pretty easy one for me today. And I say easy, but for most people it probably wouldn't be so easy, but considering the background, and I've highlighted this album in the past, doesn't hurt to highlight it again. Figured I'd give a little spotlight on this one today. And before I get into it though, this is my copy of the Acid Archives. It's the first edition. Came out in 2006. I couldn't tell you the specifics on what's different compared to the second edition, except, colored photos, I think, and, they definitely added on a few more titles since then, and I think the second edition's pretty old itself, but mine's fallen apart a little bit, but I kind of bought it that way. There's a little section missing here, but I have it like in the other room. Just needs put back in, but the whole introduction page. But it is a very, just a plethora of different things. Everything's psychedelic, jazz, prog, folk, you name it. And basically covers like the US and the Canadian groups for the most part. Nothing associated with the European or any foreign countries like that. It's basically, mainly focused on the obscure self-releases, private press. But then of course there are some major label titles in here. But they're on, at that time, back in, we're talking almost 20 years ago now, the value was certainly different back then, so, you got things that go by different rarity scales and very honest reviews, which I do tend to like, but man, they do kind of shit on some great records. But of course, that's everybody's opinion, right? You think, wow, why are they even in this book if they can't appreciate certain records? But at the same time, it's kind of neat too, just to get that kind of honest, raw, straightforward approach to it. But yeah, this is my copy. I'm sure I'll pick up the second edition down the road. I know there are some online transcripts that you can read. But I decided to pick this one today, and like I said, it's kind of an easy pick because it is local to me. And I'm spotlighting the band Heaven again. This came out in 1970. It's a band that formed out of Lincoln, Nebraska, where I currently live. And I'm going to read the very brief synopsis here. If I can get to the H's real quick. H-E-A. Heaven. I know my ABCs. Here they are. So it just simply says guitar and keyboard-led bluesy horn rock jammer. Very much in the garage, even some fuzz in spots. And it gets the 2 rarity, which is not as rare, but considering nowadays, it's pretty obscure. And I'll give a little shot of what it is right there. And I'm actually surprised they got 1970 down, because I think for a while online, it was kind of a debate whether it was 69, 70. But if you guys remember, back in, I think it was 2021 already, I actually interviewed the band, and I'm going to actually highlight that here somewhere. I'm going to post the, hopefully a little insert, or what they used to call that, annotation. Do they still do that here? I know back in the day they did. Well, anyways, I'll put a link in the description if you can't find it on the screen anywhere. I will let you guys see that video for more in-depth synopsis from the band members themselves. But I actually found this copy here in Lincoln, back when I didn't even live in Lincoln yet. I was still living back in my hometown, way out west, Nebraska, in a small town. So I kind of took advantage, because at the time my dad was actually at the hospital getting defibrillator put in. It's a little specific there, but it was going on. And I just, I said to myself, well, I'm here for you, Dad, but I want to get the thrill of the hunt down while I'm in town. And So thankful I went out, because I would have never scooped this up otherwise. And at the time, I had no idea what I had. This was 15 bucks in one of the secondhand shops in town, and considering there's not really a value as far as like Discogs is concerned. There's only one copy that sold back in 2017. It was a VG copy, and the grading wasn't that great for 35 bucks. But I think there was a copy out in Amoeba Records. I think someone pointed out online somewhere that had listed for like 900 bucks. So this is definitely approaching the grand level. And I know there's a Japanese collector on Instagram who I know has this, and it was like, mint in the shrink, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I found this, and this actually sold in the head shop back in the day at Dirt Cheap, which sold, a lot of records for cheap, but this was a brand new release. So they were putting this for $5 a pop, which was kind of unusual at the time. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of be all over the map with this backstory, but anyways, long story short, I got the interview with this band, and Colin Keefe, the trumpet player, in a lot of ways, I think he was kind of like, more or less the lead of the group. And then Bobby Menzel, who is the bass player. So this is Colin here. And then Bobby here on the back, bassist. If you guys are wondering where I filmed that video out in the woods, this is actually not too far away where they shot these photos, in the Wilderness Park here in Lincoln. Kind of a neat little area. I wouldn't go out there alone, but like I did. Anyways, I'm being silly, but kind of cool graphic art, and they only pressed 500 copies of this. And I think he said he got these printed out in California, or the group did. And this group had so much more history than I would have ever thought. So, it's not the most perfect copy. It's definitely got some scuffing. Scuffing's the worst on this one, as far as, more scuffing, less scratches, but it plays through. I mean, it's kind of a nasty scuff there, but like I said, it plays through, and this is just how I found it. Could be a lot worse. And this unfortunately didn't have the inserts when I first picked it up, but they were kind enough to sort of Xerox copy a replica of what it looked like, because they had a copy there. I was doing the interview. This is basically what it looked like, kind of giving some details where it was recorded and whatnot. Some illustrations there, and listing the band members on the bottom. So you got trumpet, bass, trombone player. So it's basically a horn band, you could say. I'd say if I had to tag a certain style to this, it's very much a jazz rock trajectory they're coming from, but sort of in the garage route, in which, it's a little rough on the edges. Not necessarily garage rock, but it's got that kind of raw production. It was not the most crisp, clean production by any means. I mean, it's very, very much a two-night session. And they actually recorded this during an electrical storm, and it kind of does reflect on the recording a little bit, because I think at one point the masters were a little fuzzy. There was like some low hum that's still present on the vinyl itself. And I think the tapes were, on some tracks, either slowed down or sped up in spots. And there's a little bit of that in there too, so it kind of gives it the unique charm, And then I think on the flip side, it was the lyrics on this little insert that came with it, so printed it out for me as well. And man, that day, I really reflect on that day quite a bit. It was a whole afternoon with them, up until the evening. And like I said, I got more backstory than I ever expected. They pretty much toured all around Nebraska and the regional states, Iowa, sometimes in Kansas. And they even had like a record deal that was hopefully going forward in Florida. Didn't latch on. And I think at one point they even had signed up with, there was talks of like maybe getting signed on to Mercury Records, which didn't seem to fall through either. But all things considered, basically for a self-release from, the Cornhusker State, this is pretty pretty awesome piece of Nebraska music history, even with its rough edges and, just where they were coming from at the time. They were basically UNL students, university students here in Lincoln. And to just be together for like 5 years or so, it's pretty awesome. And they actually started out as Kaleidoscope, a Nebraska Kaleidoscope band. My mind was blown that day. And I've actually uploaded clips of some of the sessions they made. It's a pretty rough recording, but I uploaded it on my other channel. If you guys want to check that out, as well as tracks from this record, which you'll find under Cosmic Minds. The only issue is I did not do a proper speed check on that, so it is a little more sped up than what's presented on the record. But at the time, I had just gotten a USB turntable, and I was like, I gotta upload this. So ever since then, I've never corrected it, but yeah, very cool. Heaven. And I'll give some samples here within the video too, so you can get a little taste of it.
Don't wait forever, life is too short. Get yourself together.
So if you guys know the label owner, Now Again Records, I was kind of just snooping on his Instagram page one day and happened to find that he had either copyrighted or, he's putting together this new compilation coming out, and it features a track from this album, Down by the Ocean. And it's definitely some sample-worthy stuff for like, some trip-hop or even lo-fi hip-hop listeners. I think it's like 30 seconds in, there's a great sort of down-tempo harpsichord thing going on with some great moody bass and really slick percussive noises. Very, very tasteful stuff. I'll leave a sample in here somewhere so you can hear it, but definitely the highlight of the record, I would say. And like I said, it's going to be comped on a new compilation they're making, which should be out, I'm guessing, this year. So, kind of pre-spotlighting what's to come. But yeah, otherwise the other tunes on here, they're very cool original tracks. You got a track called Freedom Train, which was written by Colin. It's the second track on here. It's kind of an up-tempo, sort of funky jazz rock, and it's got a cool concept with the Freedom Train. Whole idea of like a train chugging along. Percussive noises, chugging up like a train or a caboose would do, or like a locomotive. So you got tracks like that. Funking Town, February 26th. Do You Remember Me? Probably the most garage sounding on here. And then talking about freedom's really good. And then they end with a track, it's nearly a 7-minute track called Fly, Sigh, Cry, Die. Starts out kind of quiet, but then it kind of goes into this kind of rocking guitar solo. And I think it's like 2 to 3 minutes of just like this wall of feedback. Very Hendrix freeform style feedback going on, which is very cool. So this is on the WW Records, which to my knowledge only had one other release, which I do also own, called Bruce Hiller. It's kind of a folk artist, and I also stumbled upon that locally for very cheap, so got really lucky on both of these, man. So this is definitely one of the prized possessions in the collection, for sure. And, these guys were so nice to me. They even gave me a remastered of this record. It's like they had done it nearly a decade ago now. Try to get this out here. You guys can read it. Yeah, it was remastered almost 10 years ago now. It says 1969. It may have been recorded like, perhaps late in the year and got released in 1970. The years, like I said, a little fuzzy, but we can bet, it was nearly the turn of the decade around there. So yeah, kind of an easy pick, but this is my first entry into the Acid Archive Diaries, and we'll see what comes to the surface next. So yeah, like I said, kind of an easy one, kind of a cop-out for me, but not really. Still like to spotlight these local items, because to me, even though I grew up in small town Nebraska, I feel like, out west, the arts aren't really as appreciated as they are perhaps a little more in Lincoln and Omaha. And to me, I grew up in the whole, you know, culture where a lot of people just didn't appreciate this kind of stuff. And to me, uh, even though it is a local piece, I still think it is very good for what it is. And if you guys are into that sort of thing, if horn rock kind of distracts you, it's certainly an early group to kind of have brass instruments with rock instrumentation. It was around this time Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears were coming to the surface, and this is just a little more on the rougher side, which I'm all about. So gives it a very unique charm, and despite all that, I think they were a pretty solid, tight group. So I might be leaving a few details out, but like I said, I'm going to link to the interview, give that another try, and don't judge my interviewee or interviewer skills too much, because my social skills kind of lack in some spots, but you get a whole half hour of info on this group. So anyways, guys, take care. Have a good week. I should have enough for a new update coming up. One I'm very excited to talk about. I got an original copy in, one that I've been wanting for a while, and probably the best original that I picked up this year so far. Scored some nice 45s over the weekend in Sioux City. And what else? Probably go live this Friday as well. Plan on that, so it's just a little, pre-notification for that. Till then, check out Heaven, and we shall see you down the road, or down by the ocean, rather. Take care.